Hey guys, this is Laura with Amen Global, and today we have Andrew Day, also known as Vedius. I want to start off by asking you, before you actually got to the LEC, I know you worked on casting in some other leagues, but let's go way back when you started playing League of Legends.
So I started playing League of Legends, I think when I was, it must have been when I was like 17, 18, just before I went to university, actually.
Oh, how old are you now? Sorry.
Oh, I'm 27 now.
Oh, okay.
So
10 years
about
ago.
10 years ago.
Okay.
I started playing in season 1, and then like I actually really started playing in season 2. But yeah, I think I started playing League just as I like arrived at university. So.
Okay. And what drew you into the game?
So at the time when I learnt about it, I was playing another MMO called Cabal.
Okay, wow. Cool.
And someone in my guild at the time suggested that this new game came out and that we should give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And initially I didn't play it, but Cabal was kind of dying, and like I was getting bored of the game, and I was looking for something else. So I messaged my mate, and I was like, "Do you want to give this game a go?" And he was like, "Sure." So we both played it. I played Aurelia top. And he played, I can't remember, I think he played a Mumu Jungle, whatever was on free rotation.
I'm amazed that you remember that, honestly.
Yeah, no, I remember my very first game of Aurelia because she
Okay.
was like really complicated
Right.
because her old R used to be like diamonds that threw from her back, and her W was true damage, and her E only stunned people if they had more HP, and her Q, anyway, it was a complicated champion. I didn't understand Aurelia, I had no idea what I was doing, and then I became a Brand main because so that's what, Brand was released the week that I started playing,
Okay.
and then the week after he was on free rotation, so I started playing him, and then he became my main. So he was the first champion that I bought as well.
Okay, sounds good. You mentioned that you went to school. What did you go to school for?
So I have a degree in psychology.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And how do you use that to
I
do
don't.
Really? No way. That's impossible.
So the problem with the psychology degree is it only teaches you about the different fields of psychology.
Right.
So I didn't know this going to university, but I needed something to do, and I thought psychology was really interesting. So I was hoping that by studying degree in psychology, I would have a direction for my life.
Okay.
It didn't really give me one. It just kind of introduces you to all the different fields. And so while I did find it very interesting, I wasn't super passionate about it because I had there's no end goal. Once you graduate, you then have to go into further study. And then
Right.
once you get that further study, then you can start your job. And then you have to go through entry, like it's a whole thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I would say that the experience of going to university was way more valuable than the degree itself.
Fair.
And
Why is that?
I mean, because so basically, learned to become much more of an adult. I became a lot
That's
more
true.
independent by living
Yeah.
by myself, living with other people, learning how to cook poorly.
Poorly?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so my cooking is basic.
How basic?
So, fiber, carbs, and protein are what
Okay.
needs to exist in my dishes.
Fair.
As long as they're there, I don't really care. So, my go-to dish is rice, chicken, and peas and pepper.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I put sweet and sour sauce on it, right? Sweet and sour
Okay.
is my favorite
Sweet and sour is
dish.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I thought the experience of university was really valuable, but also it's what got me into League because I was really competitive then when I started playing ranked.
The experience of cooking or the
No,
experience?
it's, the university
That's what we were talking
experience.
about.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
because good job. With regards to the cooking, yes, I still cook the basics.
Okay.
I don't appreciate food. I don't enjoy food. Just
What
blanket.
is wrong with
right?
you?
So I'm sad that I don't enjoy food, but I eat to survive, right?
Okay.
I gain no enjoyment from it. But which is it's
That's
also
so
why
funny.
I can't appreciate good food,
Okay.
right? It's also why so I don't drink because all beer, all wines, and mostly all alcohols within their categories all taste the same to me.
Yeah.
I've offended my father on many occasions because he gives me this is really expensive old
Oh, no.
gin, and I'm it just tastes like
It's trash.
yeah, exactly. So it's the same for food. I can't, like, I was with Trevor, right, quick shot. We went to dinner, and he was like, this is the best salmon I've ever had, right? And so he let me try it, and I was like, this salmon tastes like every other salmon I've ever had in my life.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
I mean, that's what people tell me, but, like, then at the same time, a 5-star salmon is the same as the salmon I get from my freezer, so I'm like, I like salmon.
You don't spend a lot on it, so I
don't
guess
spend
that's
a lot
good.
on it, yeah. So, anyway, so that's the food stuff.
Yes.
How all this is relevant to League of Legends is when I was at university, I got really competitive and I found teams to try and play on. And I wasn't a 5v5 team that actually had, we made it to Challenger on 2 different teams. But we were never quite good enough to be able to compete at like the top level. We were called the 420 Quack. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very proud of that.
Yeah. We had a website and everything.
Wow.
It was great. Then I started playing a lot in my university league, and I built up our like university like League of Legends team. I think it still runs today. I don't know though. But that introduced me to a lot of different people in the scene, which is what gave me the opportunity to be on an analyst desk and to have some practice casting. And then because of the friends that I made through university and through League of Legends, they then put me in contact with like people here, and that gave me a leg up when it came to like applying. And so that's kind of like how I ended up here.
And how was your first experience? You remember your first league experience, so I'm assuming you're going to remember your first casting experience.
Oh, my first
too?
cast?
Yeah.
That one was, it's actually one of my biggest regrets ever because, right, so I don't know if this was my first cast, but it was definitely one of my earliest casts.
Okay.
But I was casting with Quickshot, right? And I was casting a Varus, and Varus landed, he was going for a full lethality build, and I was talking about how much damage it did, right? And I said in my brain, like, that Q hurts like A, right? And I was going to use a bad word, right? So my brain was like, use any other word aside from the bad word, and instead I said female dog, right? Which is so much more infinitely worse because it's basically saying the same thing without saying the same thing, right? And I was just like, I was so upset. Like my brain was like, you gave me nothing else? That's what you give me? So, yeah.
That's terrible. Don't do that. Yeah. Have you done anything like that?
No. I'm actually I don't normally swear on broadcast, so
Okay,
I'm,
you're
that
polite.
scarred me forever.
Yeah. It was so terrible you never did it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, early casting experiences. Yeah,
What's
fun.
the biggest difference of you back then to you right now in casting?
Oh, I mean, I'm a lot more confident in myself now than I was back then. I understand the game significantly more. I think about it way more like a pro player does rather than like an outside does. And I also like understand myself a lot more, so you get a lot more of my personality interjected into my cast without it being overwhelming and cringy, as many people like to call it. So yeah, I think like I found a very healthy and happy balance right now, whereas back then I just think that there was a lot of inexperience. So yeah, I've been doing the job for 3.5 years now.
Well, experience will come a time. So.
Yeah.
So what actually inspired you to cast then?
So, right, I did an event with the National University Esports League, NUL, right?
Okay.
And they asked me to be on the analyst desk with them, right?
Yeah.
And my colleague at the time, his name was Excoundrel, he was telling me how he was applying for the shoutcasting position back then. And when he was talking to me about it and the things that he did, that actually made me think that I could do it.
Okay.
And so after like I did my analyst desk thing there, I thought about it a lot, and I was like, I kind of want to pursue trying to be a pro player for now, so I didn't want to pursue casting too much. But then once I got towards the end of my degree and I was like, okay, I can't be a pro player, I'm not good enough. I was then like, okay, maybe I could try this casting thing out because I actually think I can be quite good at it. And that then leads me into a great funny story, which is one of the first big events I ever got was I was casting the Nordic East Riot tournament, right? And
Sounds cool.
it was a quarterfinal game
Yeah.
in Leicester, right? And they needed me because Excoundrel had gotten sick, right? So at the NUL event, I worked with another commentator on the analyst desk, and our lower thirds were swapped around. So he had Vedius under him, and I had his name underneath mine. And so Excoundrel recommended me to take his place, right? So they recommended it. So they watched the VOD, and they thought he was me. So when they requested Vedius, and I showed up,
they were so confused.
They were super confused.
Oh, that's terrible.
That was a funny story. So they weren't expecting me to be there, and then when I did show up, they were like, "Oh God, who have we got? Maybe that's a completely the wrong person." But they were like, "And then you turned out to be really good." And I was like, "Yeah, it's because Excoundrel is recommending me." So yeah, all ends.
That's good though. Yeah. Okay, and what advice do you have for people that want to start casting, or at least professionally?
It's not an easy field to get into. There are two roles. There's the play-by-play and there's the color casting. You can also obviously like apply for hosting and interviewing, but those are like slightly more niche, more specific roles. But for play-by-play casting, the field is very competitive because the flexibility of their role is a little bit limited in the sense that they primarily focus on casting, which means that there is an abundance of them to fill that position. Right. Whereas for color casting, you often fill the role as both a color caster and an analyst. And the main people that you're competing with are former pro players, which is the most difficult thing. So if you're aspiring to be a play-by-play, the most important thing is just consistent practice and being involved in as many different products as possible, because you need to be able to showcase what you're capable of. One of the cool things over in North America now is the Nexus, or the Blitz thing that they now do on a Friday night. Yeah. And that is a great opportunity for like new casters to showcase some of their cool stuff, because it's definitely a lot more laid back, and it's a little bit more freeing and less likely to be judged super harshly while also getting positive feedback. Right. Things like that are very constructive. Same for EU Masters things, like trying to get involved in that, or like being involved in the ERL leagues is another great way for European play-by-plays to like actively cast and like showcase the stuff. For color casters, the most important thing to do is to like build credibility. In order to do that, you have to learn how to learn the game, which is the most challenging part. Yeah, because
sounds like it.
I was a Diamond 1 player for a very long time, and I thought I knew my stuff. And when you get with the big leagues, you realize that you don't really know a lot. So I would encourage people to watch a lot of educational videos. I would encourage people to like listen to what commentators talk about, and like the important aspects are, when I watch a game, how do I learn? And the best advice I could give to any aspiring color casters is watch 5 minutes of a game, you pause it at 5 minutes, and you write down what you think is going to happen over the next 5 minutes. You then watch it, you see what happens.
That
and
sounds
then
very complicated.
Yeah. But you watch it, you see what happens, and then you see how much of it lines up with what you believed would happen and what actually happened.
Okay.
And then you compare the two, and then you have to think about it. And if you don't know, you need to ask questions, or you need to go out and research and figure out why is it that what you believed is different to what happened. And if what happened actually lined up with what you said, then like, yay, bonus points for you. But then you have to ask the question, was it the right decision? And like, these are the kind of things that help you understand the game more and help you think about the game in a positive light. And then the worst part about it is you understand the game up to that point, and then you need to be able to bring it back down to be able to explain it to the silver players that the majority of our audience actually is.
That's so interesting. That's really cool, actually. I didn't know that. You'd have to tone it down that much. I mean, it makes sense, I guess.
I mean, yeah, so like you can add your nuggets where like the high-level players can appreciate it, but the vast majority of our content is tailored towards the average viewer, which is like silver, gold players. Right. And so if I sit there and I start talking about like how you micromanage your wave in order to set it up for this dive, which is going to be happening in 3 minutes' time, a lot of silver, gold players will just simply like, what? So you've got to make sure that you can like add those nuggets for those players that are looking to learn, while also, but like I'm really happy that we introduced Cadril onto the desk yesterday, because that's kind of like a direction that we want to take, where you can get like 10 minutes of intense high-level stuff, which will probably go over the heads of the majority of people, but for the really hungry League of Legends fans that really want to learn and really want that in-depth, that's where pro players are excellent, because they can really give you that very specific, insightful, but they're also the people that if you're aspiring color casters, you're always competing with. So that's the challenge. Yeah, that's the challenge. The thing about pro players is that they're not very like camera friendly.
That's
so
true, yeah.
that's like point. That's how I was able to get an advantage over other pros, in the sense that like I'm very good on camera. I have a lot of personality. I'm very dynamic. I know how to work in like a broadcast environment. And these skills are extremely valuable
Yeah, of course.
outside of just being smart about the game. So, yeah.
All right. Do you have anything you want to say to people that are watching?
Thanks. Hope you enjoyed learning about my weird cooking adventures and my history.
All right.
Yeah,
That's it.
Thanks
That's
for the
all.
interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.